All right, Marks, it's time to nerd up or shut up. So, we're about 3 weeks away from the release of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we are on our second week of the countdown. So, this is going to be my top 10 locations in Final Fantasy VII. So, let's get right in with number 10. Number 10 is going to be Mount Nibble and the reactor. So, this area is actually really interesting because it's a callback to a flashback that was earlier in the game when the party first left Midgar and went to Calm. It was very mysterious because the only thing you've really been you kind of were along for the ride the first time in the flashbacks, and now that you're into the now that you're actually exploring the area, you kind of get to see everything that's around. You get to pick up some new materia. You get to see some things that weren't in the first part or in the flashback. So this one was actually a really good, mysterious way of storytelling that I kind of enjoyed back in my teenage years. I always felt it was very interesting. So that's why it's my number 10. It's nothing special. It's just kind of like a mountain area with a reactor. But there's so much that happens in this area. My number 9 is going to be Wutai. This is an area from Final Fantasy that was definitely a different aesthetic. It was also kind of interesting because it was more of a bonus area that you didn't have to really do, but it was a lot of fun. It was Yuffie's backstory, and as you know, Yuffie was definitely a bonus character. But I think this whole area is someplace that can be really expanded in the remake, whatever part Wutai would be in. I mean, there's no reason why Vincent and Yuffie should really be optional characters in the remake. I mean, everybody gets them nowadays. So, I mean, unless you purposefully don't get them, then you really do get them. It is a very interesting, it's a very different aesthetic. I hope they expand it because you have the Wutai, which had a war with Shinra and Midgar, which I know it sounds really weird, but that's a part of the lore. Is Wutai had a war against Shinra, and even though Shinra's a company, not a nation, but still. So, but then you get to Wutai, and it's like this tiny little village with this, just there's a couple buildings and a bar and a restaurant, and that's it. So I kind of hope they do really expand upon this part in the remake, make it more of an actual city. Also, it marks the return of Don Corneo and his whole escapade with Elena and the Turks and Yuffie, of course. So that's a lot of fun. Going up into that mountain area and finding, going into the mountain area and having to track them down is a little bit of fun. Plus, you get to team up with the Turks, which honestly, the Turks are some of my favorite characters in this game. Reno and Rude, they're really cool. Elena, kind of annoying, but it is what it is. Number 8, I don't really have a video for this one, but it's Rocket Town. Rocket Town is just a really interesting area. You get one of the coolest characters in the whole game, which is Sid. There's a little bit more you get to meet President Rufus Shinra again. You get to take out Palmer finally. And I mean, it's a really cool little area. You walk in and you're kind of like, there's this leaning rocket. How is it even staying up? Like there's no reason that should still be up. It should be fallen. So, physics be damned apparently at this town. Number 7 on this list is going to be Nibelheim in the Shinra Mansion. This is another one that's kind of like the Nibel Mountains, where it's a callback to the flashback where a lot of the stuff happens. So you kind of get back to this area and you're like, oh crap, like what's going on? It was burnt to the ground and now it's back. And when you get here, there's a lot of these dark cloaked figures, and you get to explore Tifa and Cloud's house again, even though you kind of got to do it in the flashback. But this is really just, it's just really interesting because it's a very plot-centric area. And I mean, you kind of get a couple of other things in this area. You pick up a bunch of items, but then you head into the Shinra Mansion, and you weren't able to go in there before. And this is where it gets like freaky. It's kind of freaky as heck. It's this old rundown mansion with these kind of undead monsters, and then you have the Lost Number battle, and then you get the Odin materia and Cosmos memory. So I mean, really, it's just like, it's really, there's a very plot centric, and the aesthetic here is kind of dynamically different. This is another area that I wish that in the remake that they expand upon, because it's just, again, a little town surrounding a square, and you have this big old haunted mansion up, and I kind of wish they would expand it in the long run. But I mean, you get Vincent here. You go down into the basement, and we're about to see Sephiroth chuck a big piece of green materia. Oh, that hurts. Number 6 is going to be what I like to call Mini Midgar, and that's Junin. Junin has kind of the same format as Midgar does. They have a lower they have a lower part that's, kind of slummy and kind of a small little town. And then they've got this like Shinra top plate that's just got built like big skyscrapers on it and a cannon on it and all this other crap. And it's a port too on top of it. So it's like the port version of Midgar. So I really like this area just because there's a lot that happens here. The aesthetic is pretty cool. I like the fact that, Shinra was all over the place, and you got to kind of covert op in there, and you got to, be under the radar, and, you got to, really mingle in with the soldiers and kind of see the everyday life of Junin, and Juninites. There was a lot of new material, new weapons. The Turks were here again, so you kind of got to see them again. So, I mean, like, and you're following the Turks and Sephiroth a lot, so I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of fun things in here, the whole little performance thing towards the end before you get on the boat's really cool. Gets you some either Force Stealer or MP Materia, MP Boost, or MP Turbo. I don't remember. One of those two. MP Plus, HP Plus Materia. And it's just a really cool area. As I said, it's the biggest city you've really been to since Midgar. So it's kind of like a nice return to form with the whole Midgar thing. Here is my number 5, which is the last one that only has an image. The rest of them have videos, I promise. Fort Condor. So Fort Condor is very interesting. There's not a lot going on here except for these little battles that you have to do, where you have to purchase troops and place them and fight. And this was always one of the fun parts of the game for me. One thing about Final Fantasy VII that you've always got to love and admire is that the mini games are, for the time, were very creative, very outside the box. You really didn't. I mean, they were just really a good time. There was just a ton of things that you could have done here, and this is kind of why I hope, again, they expand this in the remake. I hope it's not just a couple floors. You don't really get much materia here, like no new materia, no new items. I feel like Fort Condor is a place you could really expand upon in the remake coming up. And honestly, I think that it's really a shame that they didn't expand on this in the beginning. Yes, the mini game, the battle mini game is fun, but beyond that, there's not much here. And that's, well, besides the Phoenix materia later on after you win the last battle. But I mean, I think there's just a really good potential here for a really bomb mini game that could really actually be something like Blitzball for Final Fantasy VII, in my opinion. I know Chocobo Racing is kind of Blitzball for Final Fantasy VII, but whatever. Chocobo Racing is okay. Number 4 is going to be Cosmos Canyon. This is another one that just like this, the world of Final Fantasy VII is so diverse. I mean, you've got big cities, and then you've got little villages, and then you've got like cities built into like mountains in the desert. This is one of those interesting ones. It's again just a total change in aesthetic, and you're running and you're just like, man. Plus, there's tons of Red 13 backstory, as well as you get a lot of the like a lot of the story behind the planet and what's going on there. And I mean, you actually get kind of one of your first emotional hooks in the game, where you have Red 13 realizing that his father is actually a warrior and not a coward like he thought. Spoiler alert. So this place is just, and I mean, there's with I'm gonna butcher his name, but it's like Bugenhagen, him floating around on what looks like a little green ball. I mean, the very wise sage that probably would have been named Sid if there wasn't a Sid character already in the game. Not at this point, but they're upcoming. I really feel like they originally wanted the Bugenhagen to be Sid, and then there's no, let's just make him a playable character. Okay. But anyway, so and then you go down into the caves and the tunnels and everything, and you get like this kind of undead adventure where you're kind of traveling and you're kind of fighting all these things that play around with death and dark magic and everything like that. And I think that's actually a really good point in this game where they do that. And as I said, you kind of go through the marathon of everybody's origin stories as you go through that second continent. So this was a really good spot for Red 13 to kind of come into his own and kind of, become a main character in the limelight. All right, we're in the top 3. The number 3 spot is going to the wall market. And you're like, oh, it's in Midgar. Dude, Midgar is so big and there's so many areas that I kind of divided up Midgar into its own sections. So, we have, you have the wall market here where there's so much that happens. You have your first adventure with, well, I can't say you have your first adventure with Aerith, but you have like your first outing, like your full-fledged outing with Aerith after you meet her. You're chasing after Tifa, which, I'd be chasing after Tifa. You're trying to get back to your friends, and you're learning more about Aerith and the planet, a little bit here and there. But this is where the cross-dressing scene, the infamous cross-dressing scene, I mean, you've got all these, like, this place is going to be so shady in the remake, it's not even funny. Like, if they go all in on this, on the wall market, it's going to be so shady. It's like the black market of black markets. It's the underground black market. It's the slummy black market. I've said black market more times than I probably should have. So what we have here is just, I think they're going to really just expand on this. And I mean, from the images that I've seen, they're going to kind of go, there's going to be a whole section for the wall market. And you're going to have side quests here, and you're going to have, and this is a perfect place to have all that stuff in Midgar in the remake. So, and I mean, you got fetch quests going on, trying to get your whole girl outfit together. And it's just the aesthetic again, the aesthetic. It's this weird marketplace that I can't even explain. And it's just like, it's amazing. So wall market's going to be number 3. Yeah, I just can't wait for this in the remake. Number 2 is going to be the Gold Saucer. Who doesn't love the Gold Saucer? I play Final Fantasy XIV, and the Gold Saucer is in there because it's so popular. The Gold Saucer is one of those places that it is a haven for side quests. And I know, I'm a mark, go figure, I'm a mark for side quests and stuff like that. Like, I'm one of those ones that keep accepting side quests, and I like to finish all the side quests before moving on with the main quest. I feel like the Gold Saucer in the remake, whatever part it comes, probably be part 2. A place that you just have tons of side quests, lots of adventures, the battle arena, there's just so much stuff going on at the Gold Saucer. And I mean, they can expand so much on that. I mean, if you play Final Fantasy XIV and you see the Gold Saucer there, you can see all the things that you can do. I'm sure that they'll expand upon that, and I just think it'll be awesome. Really. Alright guys, number 1, here we are. My number 1 favorite place in Final Fantasy VII is the Shinra building. I love the Shinra building because it is the climax, a personification of Midgar. If the Shinra building needs to be the end of the game, the first part of the game of Final Fantasy VII. You don't, in my opinion, in the original Final Fantasy VII, you don't spend enough time in the Shinra building. You don't spend enough time in Midgar. Even if you like, you should be able to go back there more than just the once towards the end of the game. And that's why I like the fact that they're actually going all in on Midgar for the remake. There's just so much to do here. Every floor is a puzzle. It's a lot of fun. I mean, you've got quirks and everything. I mean, you've got the password on the one, you've got the doors on the other. You've got, you know, the boardroom scene where you get to flush the toilet. I know this all sounds really stupid, but there's just, it's another plot heavy point that just, and I mean, you're infiltrating the HQ of the enemy, and I feel like it is executed so well and paced so well that it just, you know, it's just amazing. Like, I mean, you start on like the 59th floor and then you keep going up until you get up to like 68 or 69, and then you get captured, and then the whole Sephiroth thing goes into play, and then it's just like, and it just keeps going and going. And I mean, I just, as I said, I'm hoping they expand upon the Shinra building. You don't have to go onto every single floor. I think that would be a bit much. But I mean, if they can expand on maybe the current floors, or at least maybe make a couple secret floors that where if you get certain keys, you can, you know, like floor 30, floor 37, you know, and then there's just some secret puzzles or something like that. Or there could be a challenge mode where you do have to fight your way through every single floor, and there's like different villain or different enemies on each floor, and you have to fight your way up. Of the infamous stair scene from just like from Ghostbusters, where Tifa calls Barrett a retard. I mean, that's that's probably not going to be in the remake, but I mean, just back in the '90s, they could get away with that kind of stuff. So I mean, there's just so much to this part of the game. I mean, there are times that I start playing Final Fantasy VII and I get through the Shinra building and I just stop playing because it is the perfect place to end part one of the Final Fantasy VII remake. And I know a lot of people are upset that it's not a whole game, but I'm hoping that they do enough with Midgar that it'll just be a huge game in and of itself, and you're going to be able to explore a lot more of Midgar that you could before, and you'll get, you know, a lot of the characters like Jesse, Wedge, and Biggs will get fleshed out. And I mean, you know, and I mean, just so much going on, and get Hojo's lab up in there. Oh yeah, and that one right there, I forgot. You got the puzzle room, or the Midgar model puzzle room. I mean, there's just so many different things that you can do, and I mean, are they kind of lames, kind of stupid for nowadays? Yes, but maybe they can update it for modern gamers and make it a little bit better for us. Well, for them, I'm not a modern gamer. I'm an old school gamer. I'm lame. So anyway, with that being said, number one is going to be the Shinra building, and I can't wait to get there in the remake, but I can't wait to just take my time through this game. Thank you everybody for tuning in for my top 10 locations from Final Fantasy VII. What's your list? Put it in the comments. If you haven't liked and subscribed yet, please do. And that's it. I mean, you know, next week I'm probably going to have my top 10 either summons or materia. I haven't decided, honestly. I'm kind of winging it. So, as always, be good to especially right now, be good to yourselves and each other.